AITAH for kicking my brother and his new wife out of my house after they tried to redecorate my dead daughter's room while I was at work. So, this is still pretty fresh, and I'm absolutely fuming. For context, I, 38F, lost my daughter 2 years ago in a car accident. She was only 14, and ever since that day, I've kept her room exactly as she left it. I don't go in there often, but just knowing that it's there untouched brings me comfort. It's like having a piece of her still with me. Her posters, her art supplies, her clothes, all of it is still there. I can't bring myself to change it. Now, fast forward to a few months ago. My brother, 34M, and his new wife, 29F, had some financial issues after blowing a ton of money on a ridiculous, extravagant wedding. They asked if they could stay with me while they saved up for a place. Even though I wasn't thrilled about it, I agreed because, well, family, right? At first, things were fine, until recently. I noticed my sister-in-law making comments about how I shouldn't keep a shrine and how it's time to move on. I ignored her because, frankly, it's none of her damn business how I grieve my child. My brother mostly stayed quiet, but I could tell she was getting into his ear. Anyway, I came home from work last week to a literal nightmare. I walked into my daughter's room, and I kid you not, they had taken down all her posters, boxed up her stuff, and had started repainting the walls a hideous beige. They had moved in a bunch of generic furniture, hung up new curtains, and were apparently turning it into a guest room. I lost it, screaming, crying, the whole thing. I asked them what the hell they were thinking, and their response? My SIL had the nerve to tell me they did it as a favor to help me move on, because it was unhealthy for me to keep the room as it was. I was shaking with rage. I told them to pack their stuff and get the hell out of my house immediately. My brother tried to calm me down, saying they meant well and were only trying to help me let go. He even tried to make me feel guilty by saying they had nowhere else to go right now, as if that would make me suddenly forgive them for destroying the last piece of my daughter I had left. I told them I didn't care and that they had crossed an unforgivable line. Now my whole family is divided. My parents think I overreacted and say I'm being heartless for kicking them out. They keep saying they were just trying to help, they didn't mean any harm, and that I'm being too harsh because people grieve differently. They're even suggesting I apologize and let them move back in. My brother is still texting me, asking me to reconsider, saying they're in a tough spot, but all I see when I look at him is betrayal. So AITAH for kicking them out and refusing to even consider letting them back in after what they did. AITAH for refusing to be around my boyfriend's son. My 53F boyfriend, 53M, has a son, age 14, who lives with his mother. In the past, we had gotten along well. However, about 18 months ago, everything changed. Son did not like living in our home due to the rules and boundaries his father and I set up, so he left and now lives with his mother. It is worth mentioning, there is a history of physical and emotional abuse by the mother on her Tao children. She and my boyfriend have been divorced over 13 years now, and he fought for custody rights in the divorce to try and protect his children from her abuse. Unfortunately, both children keep running back to their abuser. On to the current issue. Son's mother was going out of town for the weekend and had arranged for son to stay with his father in our home. The only stipulation was son needed to be taken home each day to feed their pet guinea pigs. All arrangements were made and agreed upon, so my boyfriend and I made some arrangements for fun activities for son while he stayed with us. We were to have son from Thursday night through Monday, and my boyfriend adjusted his schedule to accommodate getting him to school and feeding the pets. Friday morning, boyfriend dropped son off at home and he was to go to school from there. Later that morning, boyfriend called me because son had called stating he had an accident on his bicycle on his way to school and could not attend because of it. Note, son is notorious for skipping school, at least twice a week, and mother always calls his absence in, so it is excused. I was contacted because I was closest in distance at the time, and I offered to pick son up and take him to the hospital to make sure there was no major injury or concussion. Son called his mother, he was excused from school, I was told to step off, and the issue was over. Mom was extremely upset her son called her while she was away and told boyfriend to leave her alone. Boyfriend picked up son after work and he stayed the night at our home. BTW. Son never speaks to me anymore, doesn't want anything from me, so I give him just that. Nothing. Saturday. Boyfriend took son and started on his day of errands, a few chores around the house, and planned to take son on a 4x4 off-road adventure in the afternoon. During their time together, boyfriend talked to son about skipping school and tried to offer some guidance. Father-son talk. Son complained that the way the world works is unfair, then had an emotional meltdown over it, full-on crying. It's his go-to move to get his way. One errand was taking son to his home to feed the guinea pigs. Boyfriend waited over an hour in his car for son to come back so they could continue the day. BF was playing games on his phone and didn't realize the amount of time that passed. Son did not communicate anything to his father, would not answer the door, and when boyfriend called him, son said he was not going with him and locked himself in the apartment. The upsetting part about this is that son didn't bother to tell anyone he planned this and left his father outside to wait. When boyfriend got home, we discussed some options. In the end, it was decided boyfriend would go to collect son in the evening, and if son refused to come out or communicate with him, he would have to get the police involved. Reminder, mom is out of town and had already stated she did not want to be bothered. There was a 1-hour showdown, and son would not come out of the apartment. He did not answer calls from his father and turned out all the lights pretending no one was home. Boyfriend then called police. I showed up just as the police were talking with son in the apartment. Police said they spoke with his mother and she gave permission for her 14-year-old son to stay in the apartment overnight alone. Police also said son felt threatened by father, made accusations of abuse, and had another hysterical breakdown. After some discussion and laughing at the police's advice the mother and son need therapy, they'll never do it, we left. This was the last straw for me. I told my boyfriend that I will support him every way I can regarding his relationship with his son, but I refuse to be in the same vicinity of that boy ever again. Should his son need to be in our home for any reason, I will not be. Any vacations planned, which include the son, I will not participate or attend. It seems harsh, but I refuse to get in the way of my boyfriend's relationship with his son, and I refuse to be around to see how this boy disrespects everyone because he believes the world should revolve around him. I do not want to witness his disrespectful attitude, hear how he speaks to his father and grandmother, nor do I believe I have to. It hurts me to do this, but I have reached a point where I believe I have no other choice. So, AITAH? AITAH for not wanting to work on my marriage. I 27F have been with my now husband 29M for 6 years now. He is not an emotional person, and I know that about him and accepted him for who he is. Recently, a family member who has been inappropriate to me during my childhood has visited us for a family event, although I refused to go to event. Knowing him being there had stirred some deep-rooted anxiety in me, and I told my husband about what had happened and he brushed it off, didn't even acknowledge it, and started playing with the dog. It was like a small nuclear explosion went off inside my body, like his single act of indifference completely changed how I look at him. I used to love him blindly, all his quirks and everything, and I took a hard look and I realized I have been the only one keeping the marriage together all this time. I have been the one planning dates. I am the only who plans stuff for the future, whether it's buying couch planning trips or moving cities. I have stopped speaking to him after my realization. People keep asking me to maybe understand his point. He works late. He is tired. His family is quite demanding. But I keep thinking to myself that if he wanted to, he would. And if I am neither getting any emotional support or anything in this marriage. So AITAH for not wanting to work on this anymore. Update. I never thought I would be updating this so soon. Sorry, so much has happened, my head is spinning. All the comments and everything have me the courage to go talk to him and tell him how I feel, and it did not go well. He went out for the day, and when he came back, I decided to confront him. It did not go well. I don't remember my words, but it was along the lines of, "You are about to lose me." And he started bawling and throwing things around. I think I zoned out for a bit, and I think I am having a panic attack as I write this. I never would consider myself a weak or timid person, but I suddenly got reminded of our size difference. I never thought I would ever write this, but I am kinda scared of him right now. Anyways, he left. I don't know how to process this right now. Last update. Hopefully this is my last update. Last I wrote, I was quite emotionally charged, but nothing much has changed. He came back home, absolutely pretended everything is fine, like nothing has happened, which broke me a little more than his previous violent reaction. Looking back, I feel like a tiny hill turned into mountain. It became so high, went to moon. I have never seen someone make so many consecutive fuck up in a single situation. I am honestly amazed that we lasted this long. Anyways, we are unable to get a divorce, mostly because he won't agree, and divorce laws in my country is a freaking bit chach. So I guess I will be joining the club of loveless marriages. But yeah, I will be running out of there if there is a threat to me, that's for sure. Many of you pointed out maybe has autism. And yes, you will be correct, it runs in his family, his brother, cousin, and quite possibly he dad has it. But I am not entirely convinced autism or not. I deserve to feel not left alone, I guess. And about the inappropriate incident in my childhood. I wanted the post to be about my relationship with partner and not what happened to me in the past. But everyone jumped to conclusions. I was not sad, but the creepy person happened to try to groom me over my summer break, but I managed to escape the situation quite literally. I survived, but I have known many women who aren't as lucky as I was. I don't carry any trauma from that incident, and yes, I have went to therapy, and no, this does not affect my current, past, or any relationships. And just because I remain unaffected, that doesn't mean it's not a serious situation. The reason I decided to tell my husband about that incident was because my younger sister happened to be attending the event the creepy guy was, and I was losing my mind stressing. Regardless, it's not every day your wife comes to you and tells you a deeply personal story and you just shrug it off. I humiliated my partner in front of his mother. My boyfriend is very independent and works an odd schedule. He typically does not tell me where he is going, who he is seeing, or how long he will be gone, other than a general, "I'm going out, be back soon," or "be back later on tonight," etc. This is fine and has been fine. The other night he messaged me at 9:10 p.m. and said, "I'll be home around 9:30 p.m. This is unusual, but I was returning from an international trip and was also supposed to be home around then, so he was confirming he'd be there around the same time I got home. At 10:30 p.m. he still wasn't home. His mother was visiting, so I asked if she'd heard from him and explained why. She became concerned and messaged him. We realized his phone was off and the messages were not going through, so we were quite worried until 11:45 p.m. when he messaged me to say that his battery had died and he'd decided to stay out longer. I had been very upset. We live in a bad neighborhood in a dangerous Latin American country, and was pretty agitated, telling him, "Why didn't you find a way to let us know? I thought you'd been in a car accident or had trouble with the police. I was so worried," etc. He immediately became angry and defensive and started name-calling. "You're so annoying. Why are you being like this? Talking in circles. You're ridiculous. In America, they would call you a Karen. It's always like this with you. You're acting crazy again," etc. He also mocked me, then put on headphones and would not look at or continue speaking with me. When I realized he was so upset that he was going to sleep in another bedroom that night, I knocked on the door and asked if he would please come sleep with me. He started again. "Why would I do that when you are so unpleasant? It is so unpleasant to be around you. Why would I want to sleep next to someone who is crazy," etc. I felt like something was different this time, and in his eyes I could see that he meant everything he said. I got so hurt that I grabbed my suitcase, still zipped up from my trip, and told him I was going to sleep elsewhere. I organized to stay at a girlfriend's house. While I was leaving, his mother came out of her room and saw what was going on. This was around an hour after he got home. He has now broken up with me and kicked me out of the house because I embarrassed him in front of his mom. I only intended to stay away for that one night. In retrospect, I think I did overreact. Once I knew he was fine, I didn't need to keep harping on him for worrying me, and I certainly didn't need to leave in the middle of the night. It feels so dramatic, and now I've perhaps lost the entire relationship over it. 8th, edit, Update. Thanks for everyone's comments. I didn't know about Darvo before, and that has been extremely enlightening. I am thankful that I have the financial resources to make this transition easy and not an emergency. We live in the bad neighborhood to accommodate his financial situation, not mine. I've booked a week at a nice Airbnb to take some time and process. I'll be surrounded by friends and have therapy this afternoon. Edit. Update. This post has mostly lost traction, so not sure if anyone will see this, but did finally have to comment that a lot of the assumptions here really make me question how other people's lives and relationships work. You all seriously know where your partner is all the time, and with who and why, and you location track them, and if you saw them in a weird spot, you would question them about it? To me, that seems insane. Me and my partner are both out and about all the time in new places. New cafes, new restaurants, a bar, friend of a friend's house to co-work, stopping by here or there to say hi. I have no idea where any of his friends live, and he certainly wouldn't know where mine live either. Why would we? We live in a big cosmopolitan city, are adults, and lead individual lives. Even if his phone was on, and I saw him at some random apartment complex for a few hours, I wouldn't question him about it, and he wouldn't question me. And if we did, the answer would likely be, I was at a friend's house, and that would be that. A lot of folks here seem like they do not trust their partners at all, are super controlling, or live super boring lives where they go to the same 5 places over and over again, and that's it. Open your world, expand your mind, learn to let go, learn to trust. You might be a lot happier, more relaxed, and less uptight and suspicious. Want to be aunt, not parent. 8th? Sorry this is a little long. My brother had a child right after graduating high school, and my mother, who has always favored him, stepped right in to care for this child. He married the baby mama, but it was very short-lived. Then, like most people in their early 20s, he wanted to be free and have fun. So my niece grew up with my mom, seeing her parents on occasion. And honestly, my brother would breeze in every couple weeks and be like a big brother to her. This always bothered me. She is now grown herself, married with 3 kids of her own. She is an excellent mother. Very proud of her. Well, about 10 years after having her, he met another toxic woman. They got married and began having kids right away. He actually knew her 2 weeks when she quit her job and moved in with him. So in the 20 years they have been married, she has never worked again. And they have had 6 kids. She is obsessed with babies. But once they get about 2 or 3 years old, she's not very interested anymore. He just kept giving in to this addiction to make her happy. Meanwhile, even though he has a great job, money has been tight. I helped them out some early on. BC, I worried about my nieces and nephews. But as they continued to make more kids, after my helping, I quit doing so. But I firmly believe that my mom has continued to do so whenever she could. And mind you, she is on a very fixed income. She would not make it if my sister and I did. I help her financially. That is one thing my sister will do, send money for my mom. So even after brother remarried, his first daughter was never a part of that family. The second wife did not want her to be. My mom, his enabler, has made every excuse under the moon about that. There is no excuse for that. Well, after 20 years of marriage and 6 kids, 2 are grown and another almost grown, 3 still young ones, his wife asked for divorce. I have no idea what all happened, as I do not want to get too deep into his drama. But since she has never had any desire to work, I assume there is another man promising her things. My mom had to move in with me about 5 years ago due to health issues. I am her caregiver, including doctor's visits, picking up medicines, all the grocery shopping, take her to do all her errands, cook for her, clean for her, etc. She has always loved to drive. Up until about 2 years ago, she still drove and could do more for herself, but suddenly became scared to do so. I have no idea what this is about. So that has actually made her more dependent. So his wife wanted a divorce, and he came right to my mom for sympathy. He stayed with us a few months, and it was absolute hell. I have always known he likes his beer, but had no idea how bad it was. He spent a considerable amount of time in the spare bedroom just drinking when not working. and it would often make him confrontational. My mom would make excuses for this too, that he missed the kids so much and was depressed. I finally had to make it clear that it was my home and I was not having that. Shortly after that, he got his own place. I could tell my mom was furious with me, but there was not much she could say, and I stepped up for her, and she knows what he was doing was not right. So one of the teenagers got into it with their mom, and she called DCS on her mom. I have no idea who is right or wrong in that. This teenager can be drama, but so is their mom. It's really just a taste of her own medicine. But now there is a whole investigation going on, and my brother wonders if he may end up with custody of them all, because he is the one with the good job who can provide. I can tell he is not thrilled with this idea, but he does love those kids. So he continually worries my mom sick with all of this. I hear her on the phone multiple times a day since I work from home, trying to be his therapist, telling him how to go about it, finding a bigger place, enrolling them in a different school and making it work if he gets them. But I can also tell from these conversations that he's trying to get her to assist him with it. There is no way she can do that, and if she volunteers to do it, that will all just fall on me, and I cannot take any more on. I have had some female health problems of my own, and I am probably going to have a major surgery. I have nothing else to give right now. I have no children of my own, so I have always doted on my nieces and nephews. Every vacation they have been on, I have provided it. And not to brag, but these have been nice vacations, to the beach, Disney, and even a cruise. I want to do this for them because we never got anything like that growing up. I have also paid for every single school lunch for every one of them since they have been in school. I know that seems minor, but when you think about $2.50 a day per child x 6, that adds up. And I've had them on a regular basis for years. They are at least with me 1 weekend a month, sometimes 2. Some of the older ones do their own things now, but they are always invited. I have always also attended all events at school. School staff know me by first name. My brother works often and his wife has never been really interested in the kids unless they are babies. So I have been at school for holiday lunches, parties, field days, plays, awards, etc. And again, I do these things because I want to. I love my nieces and nephews. But here's where the new problem arises. I guess because I have done so much, it's almost expected now, as if I'm the third parent, but I am not. So I have felt for a while my brother is hinting to my mom for us to help in some way. I have made it clear I do not want him moving in my house with all those children. I have a basement, which he has mentioned more than once. I work from home and I need to have quiet areas. And quite honestly, I do not want to do that. I want to be the cool aunt. If I wanted to be a mom, daily, I would have had my own children. And even if he's not hinting in that direction, he still seems to be wanting our help. In some capacity, if he gets custody. I don't think it's right to be obligated. Again, we are not the parents. Of course, since our mom already raised a kid for him, I think her helping seems perfectly normal for him. But there are 2 things wrong with that. First of all, she is not 50 years old anymore. She is almost 80 years old and not in good health. And the second thing is that even if she agrees to anything, it will be her basically volunteering me. As I am her caregiver now, so hello? Then today, I had to take a couple of hours off work to take her to a doctor's appointment. By the way, I am the only one that ever does this. Since she lives with me and I work from home, my siblings just always assume I will do it. If I miss work hours, I still have to make those up, but I have just learned to pick my battles. So we got in the car, and I could tell something was bothering her. Then out of nowhere, she says, "If DCS decides kids can't stay with their mom, I will not let them go to foster care. We will have to take them in." I have no idea where that came from. So I reminded her that they have a whole other parent, her son, and that as long as there are 2 able-bodied parents, that's who they need to be with. For some reason, this made her so mad. She spent the rest of the ride ignoring me, and if it ever really came down to that, of course I would not let my nieces and nephews go to foster care, but I don't want to even offer this as an option, as I feel their parents will take advantage of it. And I hate to say that about my brother, but he has been enabled so much that I think he would. I honestly think he would let our elderly mom do the lion's share of it all, if I was not there playing defense. I called my sister for help, asking her to tell her mom that there is no way she can care for children at her age and health. She responded back with a text message saying, "I don't want to be in the middle of all this." Like I do, I just feel so defeated. These are problems that adults made for themselves, and they should be the ones stressing them and figuring them out. I went to check on Mom before bed and give her night medicines, and she informed me that if anything happens, she will be taking the kids in. I just had nothing left in me to argue tonight. I am having a lot of pain with my own health issues and stress to the max, but I guess tomorrow I am going to have to remind her that this is my home. I hate to play that card, as I have always wanted to feel at home, but it is my house, and again, I would not let my nieces and nephews go to foster care. She also told me today that I must not love them as much as I say, or else I would be stepping up, taking over. That is not my place, and it's not her place either. She is not going to let this go easily. It's more a control thing with her, and the fact that she has an addiction of enabling my brother. She makes me feel like I'm a giant asshole, but I don't think I'm wrong for setting these boundaries. Me doing so much for these kids is now becoming a punishment to me, because as I asked her earlier, why is so much expected of me? But she does not expect the same for my sister, who is also their aunt. And her comeback was that my sister has not ever been close to them like I have been. So me being a good aunt means I'm supposed to take everything on? I just feel so taken advantage by people I have helped. Update. I just want to first start by saying how appreciative I am of all the wonderful and thoughtful responses. It's incredible and sad how many dysfunctional families there are. So guess I am not alone in that. There has really not been big changes over the last few days since I posted this, except for me holding my ground more and making it clear that I'm not going to do that. Mom ignored me the whole next day. And then the day after that, she began trying to be nice. She must have either spoke to my sister or thought it through and realized I am the one in control. And I'm not some control freak who has to call the shots. But in this situation, I want peace. She did mention yesterday that if my brother really needs her, she will go to him. I told her that she was an adult, and that was her choice, but also said she needs to think about her health also. I also heard her over the phone with her sister, my aunt. I only heard a little bit of it as I was bringing groceries in while she was talking to her on the porch. I try not to listen to any of it to keep my sanity, and her sister was telling her that she should really consider going to the assisted living where friends are. I also heard my aunt saying that I had enough on me already. She mentioned this morning that even if she decided to go to assisted living, they have no openings until the first of the year. So she must have actually spoken to her friends about it. But then she also casually mentioned this morning, when I brought her breakfast, that she worries she will go there and then my brother will need her help with the kids. I told her that she had nothing else left to give to those kids, except visiting with them when she can. Informed her she had already raised one child for him, and this was her time to be with her friends and rest, and my time to do what I want too. I also told her that by neither one of us doing it, it would actually build a stronger relationship between him and his kids. Not to mention that the older ones help a lot with the younger ones. She actually agreed. But I also see that she's having a hard time not rushing to help him. She never said she was sorry, she rarely ever does. But she did say that she helps him more because he's willing to ask for it. And I reminded her that the very few times my sister and I asked for help, when we were still very young teenagers, that she told us to figure it out. So we did. And ours were never big asks. One time I needed help with college student aid paperwork, and she said she had no idea how to do it and shut me down. I didn't want money, just assurance. I never asked for help with anything again. I told her us figuring things out young really helped us so much in the long run. She looked in hard thought and sad at the same time, even though physically she's not what she once was. My mom is still very mentally sharp. I could tell she knew I was right about that. Then I noticed brother had called me 2x this afternoon. I have not heard from him at all over the weekend, because I'm assuming she told him we had gotten into it about that. because she hears from him multiple times a day. For him to call 2x back to back makes me think it's going to be one of his emergency situations. If anybody can make a mountain out of a molehill, it's him, or else he's just waited too long to do something and now it's a dire situation, which he says most issues are, but either way, I am not rushing to call him back. I have not felt well all day. Right now, I'm just going to focus on my health only. Getting into the specialist first part of September. It cannot come quick enough. Thanks everyone again. AITAH for not going to support my fiancé at his mother's funeral. Okay Reddit, it's been a hard year and I need some advice. This story is a bit long, but I'll do my best to keep it short. Myself, 29F, and my fiancé, 35M, have been together for 6 years. The last year has been one of our best, but also one of the hardest. It's been good because we got engaged, but only a couple of months later, his mother passed away. She had been sick for a long time, but her death still felt sudden. His family is wonderful, and his mother was like a mother to me, especially because my family growing up was less than great. He and his siblings and father have been supporting each other well, and we've worked together to make funeral arrangements. The funeral is set for a couple of weekends from now. Here's where it gets complicated. During all of the preparations for his mother's funeral, I got a phone call from my older sister that my mom had passed away. My mother and I haven't spoken in almost 2 years. She was an alcoholic, and although I've tried to forgive her for much of my childhood, I have not been able to maintain a healthy relationship with her. My sister and I are not close either. She lived with my mother and tended to enable her behavior. My sister made all of the arrangements and planned the whole funeral by herself. It is set for the same weekend as my fiancé's mother's funeral. My mother's funeral is on the other side of the country. I cannot physically attend both. I need to pick. My fiancé feels strongly that I should attend his mother's funeral, as we were close and he wants me there to support him. He doesn't understand why I would even think about going to my mother's funeral instead, when we haven't even spoken in years. He's been very upset and angry at the idea that I would abandon him right now. I know he's hurting. The truth is, I don't know why I want to go to my mother's funeral. All I can say is that it feels important for me to be there. I don't want to miss his mother's funeral either, and of course I want to support him, but I also feel that his family has each other. They are all incredibly supportive and kind people. My sister has done this alone. She might not have made the best decisions in the past, but no one should bury their mother alone, right? I don't know, Reddit. I can't tell if the grief is messing with my brain and there is a clear answer that I just can't see. I don't want to let anyone down, and I'm worried my fiancé won't forgive me if I'm not there for him during this. What do I do? AITAH for not inviting my closest sibling to my wedding. I, 27F, have an older brother, Jack, 30M. Growing up, we were close, sharing a bond forged through the trauma of our abusive, alcoholic father. Unfortunately, Jack never sought therapy and often lashed out, particularly at our mom. He would ruin holidays with his cruel behavior and was physically abusive to me as well. Despite this, I forgave him because he was my brother. In 2021, I got engaged and shared the news with Jack, but he never responded. Weeks later, he revealed he was struggling with meth addiction. I urged him to come to me in tough times and that my engagement was the least of my worries if he was struggling. In 2022, after the birth of my second child, Jack again didn't respond. A couple of weeks later, my sister Ashley informed me that Jack had overdosed and was found in a ditch but had been resuscitated. Jack made Ashley and our mom promise not to tell me, but she felt I needed to know. A month later, I called Jack and asked if he wanted to talk about what happened. He was dismissive, saying he didn't want to discuss it. I mentioned he hadn't acknowledged my child's birth, and he sarcastically congratulated me. I told him I just wanted him to care, to which he coldly replied, "I don't." I hung up, and we didn't speak for a year. This spring, Jack texted me out of the blue, wishing me a happy birthday. We exchanged a few light texts, but he never acknowledged his hurtful words or apologized. When I got married this summer, I decided not to invite Jack. It was a very hard decision, but my feelings were still incredibly hurt. I was also worried about his potential drug use, how he might ruin our mom's day, and the lack of an apology for his previous behavior. Ashley and my mom were upset with my decision, but I thought I had valid reasons. Am I an asshole for not inviting him? Edit. First, thank you to all those who responded. And just for a little clarification, my wedding has indeed already happened 2 months ago, and I didn't invite him. I have been hearing a lot from my mom and sister about how hurt Jack is about the non-invite, which is what caused me to ask for your opinions. However, after posting this, I was super in my feels and decided to call Jack, touch base, see where he was at in his sobriety journey, and gauge if he was in a spot to work through things. It was 2 hours of being belittled, disrespected, name-called, and talked down to. He said multiple times he'll never forgive me for not inviting him to my wedding, and he'd be more than happy to never speak to me the rest of his life. He told me I didn't try hard enough when he was struggling, that even though he didn't respond to my texts or calls, or with the harsh things he said, I should have never stopped trying, and that I wasn't giving him the support he needed. He said when I called him a year ago and tried to address his OD, I forced him into a conversation he wasn't ready to have, and that was awful for me to do, and showed I couldn't be supportive. I apologized for not handling it the way he needed. I was worried and didn't know what to. He hung up on me multiple times, and eventually I just didn't bother to call back. Afterwards, I called Ashley and she said, if you want to have a relationship with him, you need to just apologize for everything. Act as if it was all your fault. It's not right, but if you want him in your life, that's what you have to do, which I won't be doing. Biggest takeaways were I made the right call on not inviting him. There's no apparent growth that has been made on his part. I will be staying no contact from here on out. AITAH for not telling my partner that I'm pregnant. Again, I 28F am afraid to tell my spouse, 31M, that I am pregnant again. I am pregnant again for the 4th time. Our 3rd child was not planned, and even though we love him to bits, he came really unexpectedly. He is now only 18 months old and I am pregnant again. We have used contraceptives our entire relationship until after the 3rd was born, we moved toward more natural family planning. I keep track of my ovulation, and he places a lot of trust in me to know when we don't need to use protection. That worked for a total of 18 months. I didn't plan on getting pregnant, it just happened, but I'm afraid if I tell him he won't trust me. We have had plenty of discussions about how many children we should have, and while he is done, I would love more. Well, I found out I was pregnant a few days ago and was planning on telling my husband when he got home from work that same day. When he got home, things changed, and now I am unsure what to do. Here's what happened. He started telling me how overwhelmed he is with life, and how he isn't sure he can handle everything going on right now. After spending quite some time talking and working through his thoughts and feelings, we had dinner and put the kids to bed, then turned on the TV to relax. I didn't want to bring up pregnancy yet after what he said this afternoon, but I wanted to gauge where he stood with potentially having more kids in the future. I asked him if he would ever want more than 3 kids, and his response was, "We have been over this, and you know where I stand." When I asked him to go over his reasons again, his response was, "Having more than 3 gets really expensive as our vehicles will need to get bigger. If we have a girl, we need to buy clothes and shoes. We have 3 boys. If we have a girl, then the dynamics will change, and we will have to navigate all those parenting changes." He lists things that I'm not going to type out, but one of the points was teaching our boys better bathroom privacy habits and things like that. He continues, "If we have another boy, we are just compounding what we already have, and the 3 of them already stress me out. I have a hard time keeping track of 3. I don't know if I could handle 4. If we were to have another, I don't want to have the next one close together like the last 2. I'd rather space them out like the first and second. I don't want a baby in the summertime like our first baby was, because that was really hard to feel so restricted right during summer. So everything he doesn't want is about to happen, and I don't know how to break the news to him. Our baby is due in June, and that is actually when I would prefer to have a baby because it's easier to go outside postpartum and I won't be cooped up in the house with 3 little kids, but it's not something he wants. How do I go about telling him that a baby is on the way anyway? What do I say? Do I surprise him and hope for the best? Do I wait until a really good moment and possibly spoil it? Do I just come out with it? How do I help him feel excited and not completely stressed out? Part of me wants to pretend like I don't know. I know it would be wrong, but it would just be easier. Update. This weekend has been an absolute roller coaster, so I thought I'd update you all. And just a quick FYI, we do use birth control, but not chemical birth control, because the pill didn't work for me, hence number 3, and I was allergic to the IUD and had a really bad reaction to the Nexplanon. Okay, so I told my husband, and actually everything started out really smooth. He said that every life is exciting, that he is nervous about the changes, but he is genuinely excited. He said fatherhood has pointed out his flaws and brought his weaknesses to the surface, and that is what he struggles with, and he just needs to learn to be more patient and understand that he can't expect kids to just do what he wants them to do 100% of the time. I think he is a fantastic father and he is too hard on himself, but I digress. I told him I definitely did not plan to have another baby, especially right now, and even though I wanted more kids, I would never force a baby on him. That it was something I thought maybe we could revisit in a few years and see how we felt then. I told him how nervous I was about juggling 2 night jobs and taking care of 4 kids during the day, and that's when he perked up and dropped his own news on me. He told me he wasn't sure how to tell me this, but he got offered a huge promotion at work, and it would allow me to not have to pull so many night shifts, unless I wanted to, but I would not have to. I got all excited, but he wasn't done. The promotion is for a different branch in another state, so we would have to move. I asked him when he got the promotion, and yep, it was the same day he came home telling me how stressed out he was about everything. He didn't tell me right away because he wanted to think about it. He thinks now that we have another baby coming, it would be good for me to work less as he would make more. He really wants this promotion, but is worried it would be too hard on me as I absolutely love where we live. I love both of my jobs and my coworkers, and the schools are great. We are really established in the community, and I live about 2 hours from family, which is just close enough but not too close. Now we have a huge decision to make. The next day I started having really bad pain and bleeding. Obviously something was wrong, so we went to the ER. Turns out I am not pregnant. They found a huge ovarian cyst on one of my ovaries, and it caused the false positive on the pregnancy test as well as the missed period that led me to take the test. I had to have surgery to remove the cyst, and I am recovering well. Also, we are moving next year instead of having a baby. My husband said this whole thing made him realize he does want to have more, but we both agreed to wait a few years too and see how we feel then. I'm glad I'm not pregnant. I just didn't think there was any point in not being excited if it was going to happen anyway. But now that it's not, I'm so relieved. Also, to address the bathroom habits of our boys, we live in the country and have no neighbors, and they like to pee off the back porch into the grass, and yes, that would have to stop, or they would have to go out behind the barn to preserve privacy if we had a girl. They also forget to lock the bathroom door frequently, which we get after them for, but I feel like the stakes are higher if a sister walks in on them. Also, they don't knock when entering the bedroom because they all share a really big room for now. We have enough bedrooms for them, but they like to all be in the same room and would sleep on each other's floors, so we moved all the beds into the biggest room. For now, that's how it is. They don't knock. Again, we get after them for it, but it would be a bigger deal if they were walking in on a sister. The dynamics would just be different. Mother-in-law lied about my future savings. I live with my boyfriend at his parents' home. His parents charge me rent every month, and they told me that the rent I pay will be put away for my future. They said that this money will be kept aside for me to purchase a home or get an education. I've been living with them for 3 years and thought I had a substantial amount of money set aside. A few weeks ago, his mother told me that this money is no longer aside for me. She said that this money will be used for food instead. However, this caught me off guard because she is well off and can afford to go on multiple trips a year, go out every single weekend, and is planning a long trip to Europe. I feel like I was lied to. For the past 3 years, I thought that I was saving for a down payment on a home, just to find out that I instead have nothing aside for the future. I am hurt and upset. What would you do in my situation? Short version. Mother-in-law said that rent I pay her will be put aside for my future, 3 years after she changed her mind, I am currently in a tight financial situation and have nothing saved for the future. Edit 1. My boyfriend thinks that it is not a big deal. He says that his mom had been a liar and manipulative his whole life, so there is nothing he can die about it now because she won't change. Therefore, he and I just have to accept her behavior. However, this makes me upset because it seems like he is not ready to stand up for me when needed, and it feels as if he doesn't value my feelings enough. Anyways, we came to the conclusion that we should have a talk with his mother next week when we see her to explain how I feel. Edit 2. I am a student, and if I knew that this money was not going towards my future, I would have made different choices. I would have chose to move back to Italy with my family, where I wouldn't have had to pay rent and school is free, or I would have stayed in Canada, but instead of going to school, I would have worked full-time and saved up as much as possible. As a student, I am working part-time and everything I earn goes towards rent. Edit 3. More than once, his mom said, "You should be grateful that I let your girlfriend live here." But she is the one that offered me to move in their home to begin with. This type of comment made me feel very unwelcome. Edit 4. On top of paying rent, I often cook for the whole family and help clean the house. I also look after their kids when they leave for vacations or weekends. Edit 5. Looking back, I was treated unfairly on multiple occasions. I feel used and I'm looking forward to moving out. 8th, for telling my friend, who was the bride, that she wasn't considerate. I'm a 26F. I was asked by my high school friend to be a bridesmaid, but I had turned it down because I already knew the dates would clash with my business trip. Her bridesmaid consists of 3 other friends whom I knew too, and as far as I remember, they're all nice and very considerate. Fast forward to 3 days before my friend's wedding, my manager said I could fly back early since the conference would end earlier. I was happy because I could attend my friend's wedding. On the day of the wedding, I came earlier to see what I can help out with. The bridesmaid stayed overnight at the hotel with the bride, so they invited me up. The bridesmaid looked like they didn't sleep at all. I had brought them all coffee bean to perk them up, while I offered to help the bridesmaid iron their outfit. The bride was showering at that time, and one of their bridesmaid with cucumber pasted under her eyes pulled me over to a corner and said, "The bridesmaid outfit is made out of itchy materials, so we had to improvise and put some extra layer underneath it, so it's best not to iron that crap at all. By the way, do you happen to have a cream but not concealer to reduce the darkness of my under eye?" I was stunned. I asked if she was allergic to concealer, and she told me the bride made a rule to the bridesmaid not to wear makeup as well. She even told the bridesmaids to look natural. For an 8-hour wedding and no sleep? I excused myself and let the girls get ready while I wait for them at the venue. During the walk-in, the girls were bringing the gift exchanges, and I can tell they were all lacking of sleep. All the bridesmaid then rushed back out to do the photo booth, which the bride only paid for the book, loaned the Polaroid camera, pretty pens. The booth fairies were all the bridesmaid. Thank God there was a maid of honor. I was helping out at the booth so that the bridesmaid could take a breather. 8 hours later, it was the outdoor photo shoot, and it involves the bridesmaid and groomsmen. I wasn't there because I was helping the bride's side to pack up, but one of the bridesmaid came back to help to do the pack up instead, ranting off to me that the groomsmen wives were there, and they took over the bridesmaid shots. I felt bad for these girls because they invested time in it, and the least you could do as a bride is to let them wear simple makeup to not look dead. I knew my high school friend always wanted to be the center of attraction since secondary school days, but this is just so wrong and dirty to do it to her other friends. The bridesmaid were crying at the lobby of the hotel while waiting for their partner to fetch them. It was traumatic for them, and I didn't realize they were crying badly because one of the bride's relative literally scolded them. During one of our meetups, which was 8 months after her wedding, I told her that she was wrong for doing that to her bridesmaid. The clothes she bought for them was not even their correct sizes. And in Indonesia, we used a certain type of batik cloth for the dead. She bought that batik. We're all Indonesians' descendants. We know this. She even told the bridesmaid not to wear any makeup so that she can look flawless. As far as I know, most brides want their bridesmaid to look good on that day too. I called her actions out because these are friends who stood by her when she gets bullied in school. She did them dirty when she showed the wedding pics to me with her bridesmaid inside. I asked her, what about the outdoor shoot? How come it's with the groomsmen wives? She had the audacity to tell me that they all look more alive and lovely. Wuff, so eighth for calling my friend's action out? Telling my best friend of 10 years I won't be going to her wedding. Not replying to any more comments, very mixed opinions. Maybe I should have asked what she expected before committing to the role. I helped her set up for her engagement party, went down early whilst pregnant, because no one else could. When my first child was born, she didn't come to my baby shower. Never told me she wasn't coming, just didn't show up. She was nowhere to be seen. I left it because I understood we were both 21 and she was living her life. When I was pregnant with my son, I only saw her when she wanted to go out and get drunk. I went with her so she could have a good time. I drove because I couldn't drink. Friendship is a two-way street. She didn't speak to me when I had my first child, or my second, or when I got married. In fact, she put a downer on it with her comments about it been too soon. Yet I had a child, a house. She has been with her fiancé less time than I was with my husband. Thank you, everyone. So here's a bit of context. I'm 26F. My friend is also 26F. She gets married next year. I'd say probably about 10-11 months ago, she asked me to be her maid of honor. I was over the moon. Couldn't wait to help her plan the wedding, plan her hen-do ECT. Whenever she asked my opinion on dresses, I gave it her. I always asked when I spoke to her how wedding planning was going. She had it all under control, so I didn't try to interfere. Here's where it gets a bit messy. She was wiring posts on Facebook, Snapchat, etc. about her bridesmaid been shit, no asking how wedding planning was going, not helping her when she needed it. So I asked her what was wrong. She made a very indirect comment about my relationship. I basically said, it all seems very indirect. I've got 2 children. It's 6 weeks holidays. So I've been very busy. My husband works late all week. She messaged me a few days later saying she was only having 2 bridesmaids as she wasn't wasting money on people that didn't care. But I was still invited to the wedding. I replied with no worries. Then she posted something else on her Snapchat story, another indirect. So I basically said, my children are my priority. If you can't understand that, then you aren't the friend I thought you were. I won't be coming to your wedding. She messaged me and said she doesn't expect anything to come before my children, but life doesn't stop when you have kids. Put into perspective, my daughter is autistic. My son is 6 months old. The only person that will have them is my mom. She's under the hospital for suspected lung cancer. So I only ask her to have them both when I need her to. Am I in the wrong for saying I'm not going to the wedding? TLDR. My friend asked me to be maid of honor at her wedding. I have been busy with my children over the summer holidays. She told me, life doesn't stop when you have kids, and she was only having 2 bridesmaids, but I was still invited to the wedding. I told her I would not be attending her wedding. Update. Just to clear a few things up, when I have asked it about the wedding, she has said it's all good, which made me think she had it all under control as she hadn't said anything until this point. I didn't tell her I don't have time for her wedding, she said, about none of the bridesmaid checking in on her. It had been a few weeks since I'd spoke to her, as it was the summer holidays. I have to have eyes in the back of my head as my daughter 5 is autistic. She has already picked my son up and dropped him when he was a few months old. I had sorted the children out for the night before the wedding and the day night of the wedding. I took a few days to think about my decision of not going to the wedding. I didn't just say it out of spite. I would have been at the wedding on my own. She did invite my husband, but he didn't want to go with me, been MOH, as he would have been left on his own and wouldn't know anyone. With how the whole situation panned out, I decided I did not want to go to a wedding when my friend couldn't talk to me about the issues and had to post them on social media. I decided I would spend the time at home with my family as my husband has them days off work. As some are assuming she helped with my wedding planning, she didn't. I did it all myself. When I had my first child, she dropped off the face of the earth, no asking how I was doing. She's met my 5-year-old about 4 or 5 times, and my 6-month-old probably twice. AITAH for ending a 20-year friendship over $150. I, F44, have been friends with an old co-worker I'll call B, M45, for over 20 years. We used to work at Starbucks for a couple of years and I was his manager. We aren't super close and never dated or had any kind of relationship outside of a couple of friendly phone calls a year to stay in touch and catch up. I typically give him life advice, and I view it as a big sister-mentor dynamic. Recently, he's told me that he is going through a terrible divorce and custody battle. He called me last Friday and unexpectedly asked me to borrow $150. He's never asked me for money before, and I generally have a rule to never loan money to friends or family. However, he was crying and very upset on the phone and sounded desperate. He promised me his paycheck was being deposited the next day and he would pay me back immediately. I reluctantly agreed, and once I had sent the money, he abruptly ended the call. I instantly regretted it and realized the following day is a Saturday, and direct deposits typically don't go in over weekend days. Needless to say, 5 days go by with no return of my money, no text, no calls, nothing. I texted him saying, "Hey, checking in on the $150 I loaned you. My car payment is due on the 15th, so I need it back ASAP." The 15th was 2 days away. He replied saying, "Yes, ma'am." 3 more days go by. I've again received nothing still, so now I'm pissed off. I send him another text that says, "Be what the actual fuck. I'm so incredibly disappointed in you. I feel like you completely took advantage of me and have put me in a very difficult financial situation. You told me you only needed the money for 1 day and you would pay me back immediately. 5 days later, I told you I need the money back for my car payment, and you promised you would do that. You didn't. You've betrayed my trust, lied to me, and fucked me over. I've been your friend for 20 fucking years, and this is how you choose to treat me? I don't know how you can possibly justify this, but you need to understand that I don't have buckets of money lying around to just give away. I work paycheck to paycheck like everyone else, and things are incredibly tight right now. I just got a property tax bill for $3,000 that wasn't expected that I have to rework my budget for now. $150 is 2 weeks of groceries for me. It's my electric bill for the month. It's half my car payment. I budget my money responsibly down to the last dollar. I didn't want to loan you money because I can't actually spare it. But I understand you are in a difficult situation, so because you are my friend, I trusted that you would be a man of your word and not put me in this situation. I need you to do whatever the fuck it is you need to do to get my money back to me now. I'm not kidding, B. You've had a full week and my patience is over. I feel so disrespected by you and you didn't even give me the courtesy to be honest about when you would be able to pay me back. I need you to be real fucking honest now. When the fuck am I getting my money back? I'm so pissed right now that I can't speak to you on the phone, so don't bother calling me. You just need to text me your response, and I need an answer now. I expected to receive some kind of apology text, but instead, this mother effer decides to gaslight the shit out of me like I'm the one in the wrong here and have no right to be upset. He replies, "Let me ask you a question. Can you think of one time that I have ever lied to you? One time that I have ever intentionally misled, or any of the things you just accused me of? I'll wait. If I had known things would have shaken out like this, do you really think I would have asked you for help? I have 3 days to try and figure out how to stay in Oregon with my daughters, or it's back to Texas for me and my ex, and her father are taking the girls to Canada. Permanently, and I'll pawn my guitar and get your money today." I didn't respond back to him, and I still haven't received the money back. At this point, I doubt I ever will. I get that he is going through a difficult time, but the audacity of his response to the situation is astounding to me. It's completely disrespectful, IMO, and I don't think this is someone who is worthy of my friendship anymore. I feel like I'm dealing with a narcissist who has revealed his true colors, and he couldn't care less about how this has impacted me. So AITAH for wanting to end a 20-year friendship over $150. AITAH for refusing to go to my dad's for a weekend. I'm a 25-year-old female. My parents got divorced when I was 7 and my brother, Tom, 4. After that, they found new partners. My dad's girlfriend, Anne, was quite nice to us at the beginning, but it all changed when my half-brother, John, was born, now M15. She didn't want to us, Tom and me, near John. She always told us not to come too close, not to touch him, not to disturb him, etc. Tom and I spend a lot of time at my grandparents' after our parents divorced, because my dad James, after John was born, moved in with Anne, who lived in a different city around 50 kilometers from where we lived. We saw him every other weekend and sometimes on weekdays. As I mentioned, we spend a lot of time with our dad at our grandparents', at first only us, but later when John was around 5, Anne started forcing our dad to take him with him everywhere. He couldn't spend any time just with us. He always had to take John, and if he didn't, Anne would yell at him and cause hell. Of course, that didn't sit well with us, and we didn't, and still don't have a good relationship with our half-brother. We know it's not his fault that his mother behaves like that, but it's still difficult to accept him because of what she did. My dad and Anne often argued. She would yell at him in front of me and Tom, berate him, and be overall unpleasant. I didn't like going to my dad's because we would always have to do, eat, and agree with everything John wanted. I only went there because I missed my dad and wanted to spend time with him. I didn't want to disappoint him by refusing, so I went along with everything to make him happy. Last year, my dad had enough and he moved out. He said, and he won't come back, but just after 2 months he did. Our relationship became strained after that. He started calling me only once, twice a month, when before he called even twice a week. When I called, he kept conversation short. If I call him when he's at home, he doesn't pick up, only calls back when he's alone. After he moved back in, I told him that it is life and his decision, but I won't set foot in their house ever again, and I stuck to it. Today we met with him in person for the first time in 6 months, and as he was driving us back home, he said that he would be very happy if we could visit him and spent weekend at his house at the end of September. I asked him if he could just come to our town and we could spend weekend here. His mother, our grandma, still lives here, so there is no problem with accommodation. He kept pushing and asking why I didn't want to go, so eventually I told him that I just don't want to go there because I don't feel comfortable or welcome there, and I don't feel the need to meet with Anne or John. I won't forbid Tom from going. He's old enough to decide on his own. But I refuse. My dad said that the situation has changed, and I shouldn't harbor petty grudges and give them another chance. I still don't feel like going, but I feel guilty for disappointing my dad. Would I be TA if I still refuse to go? Edit. As some of you asked, my dad didn't explain what he meant by situation has changed, but I don't think he meant that Anne has changed. I think he just wanted to say that their relationship has improved, and thus we should just move on and forget what happened last year. For some clarification, Dad and Anne aren't married, so she isn't my stepmother. In my country, after you get divorced, it's very uncommon to remarry. Me and Tom call her Aunt. If they parted ways, my dad would have to pay child support for my half-brother, but that wouldn't be a big sum, because he still pays child support for me and my brother. Where I live, parents have to pay child support as long as their children are studying, so even though we are in our 20s and I work, he still has to send us money every month. AITAH for wanting to go no contact with my mom? My mom, nearly 50 EF, is terribly controlling. She wants everything done her way, and if it doesn't go her way, she has terrible tantrums. For some background, when I, 24F, dated all my previous partners, she wanted to know all the details of my relationships. She wanted to control who I can see and when I can see them. When I announced my engagement to my now hubby 24M, she stated that we cannot get married before she married her then only boyfriend. When I announced my pregnancy, she stole all the shine as she will be a grandmother. She made my baby shower all about herself. She paid no attention to any of my theme ideas, or anything. It was her special day. When I phoned her to announce that our baby is a boy, she hung up on me because she wanted me to have a girl and ignored me for a week. I wasn't allowed to go study to become a doctor because then I would have to move too far away. This is barely scratching the surface. I feel sorry for her because her and her husband live on a farm. She is pretty secluded, doesn't have many friends, and the only time she gets out of the house is when they go to the pub or when they go grocery shopping. I am basically her only daily conversion. She has started going in on my husband, stating that he is selfish for not making me a sandwich while dinner was being prepared, that he is lazy. He is not. He just opened his own company that is doing very well, and he helps me in our house. commanding how I must raise my son. I want to go no contact. I am over-crying nearly every time I spoke with her. Would I be the a-hole if I did? Edit to update. So I posted this after a big fight yesterday, and this morning I got a phone call from a hospital. My mom is on a ventilator in ICU. They don't have a confirmed diagnosis and are still running tests. I feel angry and like a horrible daughter, but I don't want to go see her. Edit 2. Got a call from the same hospital number. They suspect an OD on prescription medicines. My last and final update. I have been blind to so many things that I have been through with my mom. Realizing this isn't the first time this happened was a real eye-opener. I have decided that from now on, all our contact will be through my mom's husband. She has been hiding our conversations from him. He agreed that he will ensure she gets all the physical and mental health care she needs. We will not go visit her in the hospital, but will have a video call with both our husbands in attendance. My mom is getting better, she is off the ventilator, and now in a general ward. We will be going LC, with very strict boundaries. I want to thank each and everyone for their comments, good or bad. I want to apologize for everyone who has gone through the same as me, or worse. Stay strong. I thought that would have been the final update, but here it is. You all were right. We, hubby and I, are now being made out to be the worst human beings ever, because we weren't there, and we didn't make my parents-in-law phone them, my mom and her husband, to ask how my mom is. I have accepted that I am done. 8th, for leaving my GF house after her brother ignored their grandma's request to get dressed in front of visits. Me? So GF 27 and me 31M been dating for like 6 months, things going okay, but I had some friction because her brother 23M would parade around the house in underwear when I visit. I did mention something about it, and the kid at least once put on a shirt. Well, last week this happened again. I said nothing, and the kid said, "I'm in my house." Well, it's not his house. They live with grandparents. Kid has no job, barely studies. I got him an apprenticeship and been training him. What grinded my gears was that grandma called him out to put on some clothes in front of the visit, and the kid answered, "This only happens because OP is visiting. Grandma don't bother me." And I lost it. I said nothing and carried on watching a movie, ignoring Captain Underpants, and left. Grandma was disappointed, and I gracefully ignored the fact he had talked back to the owner of the house, calling him out for not having a modicum of respect to me, a visit. Now this is where I think I was TA, because this week the whole thing happened again, but I was tired from master's classes, starving, and with a headache. GF wanted to play Monopoly and asked for pizza. Captain Underpants waltz in, again nothing against me, but completely ignoring that his grandma who feeds him called him out. Again. Well, I did behave, made an excuse to GF's family that I was just feeling a bad headache and that I could not stay, and left. Well, GF was pushing me and got the whole version out. I was in the door about to leave and told her something like, "You brother is again half naked, doesn't seem to care that me a visitor is present, and this does not compute in my upbringing. My grandpa has his shirt open right now." GF said, "Well, your grandfather worries about putting on his shirt when I arrive. The fact that he opens it because of the heat is different, other than the fact that he is 79 years old. I thought about mentioning it to your brother the previous time that your grandmother called him out, but it was outrageous to me that she was also ignored. I understood that in order not to make a scene, both your grandma and I stayed silent. It's no my place to call him out. That he ignores my simple request and ignores his grandma about it. It just doesn't seem tolerable to me. I feel disrespected. You are disrespecting me." GF said. I answer, "I'm not. I'm telling you this in private and not making a scene in front of your family. I'm sorry, I must leave. Look, I don't want to fight. It's not that I feel offended or anything. I just don't agree with that behavior. Talk to him about it if you want. It's not my place." She did tell me the guy had broken up with his GF and was sad, but none of that has to do with the fact that Captain Underpants would ignore a guest, and his grandma who adopted, feeds, and clothes them both. Also about me. Something about the saying, "You teach people how to treat you." Well, AITAH? GF was sad. IDK if I have a GF anymore. Heck, I even feel like I have a stick up my ass, and that this is ridiculous on my behalf. But for real, I was raised like this. Not once had I seen a friend half naked in the living room, unless some settings or in the inner quarters of the house, but not like that. No talking back to mother when corrected on matters, not in front of visits, geez. AITAH,